Haaland still not back in the Manchester City squad, Bowen and Solanke both picking up knocks in the FA Cup, and a change in start time for game week 21. We're going to cover all of these topics and more in today's video, so sit back, relax and enjoy. Starting off the video, I feel we're going to cover the most important point first. That is the change in game week 21 kind of start period. Originally, it was going to be a Saturday 11 o'clock deadline. Now it has moved to a 6:15. There we go, a 6:15 on the Friday evening. That is all down to Luton not progressing straight away in the FA Cup. They're going to have a replay. So originally they were going to play like Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday. Now it's been moved to so they'll play Friday, Tuesday and Wednesday. So it's a little bit frustrating. And I do think this is potentially going to have some huge ramifications to the game, to be honest, because I feel with the original deadline being on the Saturday and Manchester City playing in the evening on Saturday, I feel we potentially would have got some early team news, or at least something around potentially Erling Haaland's availability. But now, with this game week kind of being moved a day forward, I think we're going to have even less information to potentially base our teams off, which is massively frustrating, to be honest, ladies and gentlemen. But like I said, the game week deadline time has moved. That is the key point that you need to take away from this. So if you weren't aware of that, it has now moved to the Friday. So make sure you are getting your teams locked and loaded for that Friday evening. And if you want to tell your friends in your group chat, or you want to keep it quiet and maybe get a little bit of an advantage, this is probably the perfect time. And that's what you get with this channel. You get that little bit of inside information that potentially could help you out. So if you do enjoy the content, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. Moving on to our next area of discussion, it's going to be about potential injuries that could impact our team. The two men on screen have now both been flagged in the game after sustaining injuries in the FA Cup. Jarrod Bowen limped off in additional time for West Ham's game today, and Dominic Solanke didn't even feature in Bournemouth's win over QPR yesterday either. So both very highly owned players, both very desirable as well going forward in the next few weeks. Arguably Dominic Solanke not too much this week, but he is a very highly owned player and a lot of people kind of do have him and potentially were looking to keep him for this game week. But we're going to start off with the man on the left. It is Jarrod Bowen. Now the problem we're going to have with Bowen, he was, like I said, a very desirable player. A lot of us were looking at him as a potential Salah and Son replacement. Very good idea. Some positive fixtures coming up for West Ham. He pretty much plays 90 minutes most weeks as well. A very good asset, having a fantastic season as well in front of goal. The problem that we're going to get is the fact that this game week is spread out over 2 weekends, and Jarrod Bowen isn't playing in that first weekend bracket, so we're not actually going to get a David Moyes press conference before the next game week, before the deadline. So the problem we're going to have is we're going to have basically no or very little information to kind of judge what to do with potentially Jarrod Bowen. Now, my personal opinion on this, as a Jarrod Bowen owner, I think if you own him and we get very limited news, I think keep him, because Jarrod Bowen has got a very good positive injury record. I think he's only missed like 1 or 2 games in the past 4 or 5 seasons. Very consistent player, spends very little time out injured as well, and when he does, he only misses 1 or 2 games, so it's probably not the end of the world, and there's probably bigger dilemmas to potentially face in your team. Maybe if you've still got Haaland or Solanke, you've still got Salah and Son to potentially replace. So I don't think if I owned him, I wouldn't be looking to get rid unless we get like news from like maybe a reliable source or like The Athletic saying that he's maybe done a kind of longer term injury and he's going to have to go for scans. But I imagine we'll get little snippets. But from the way it looked, it did look a little bit serious, but at least he was able to kind of hobble off the pitch. And with them having kind of a little bit more of an extended break, not playing this weekend, playing the following weekend, I think potentially Bowen could be back. So I think if I was an owner like myself, I think I would potentially hold on to him. If I was looking to bring him in, I think that is a very different argument. Unless we get 100% positive news that Jarrod Bowen is going to be featuring in that next game for West Ham against Sheffield United, which I doubt we're going to get before the deadline, I would not be bringing Jarrod Bowen in. Unless, like I said, we get some positive news before the deadline that, David Moyes maybe comes out after the game, says he's all fine, or maybe there's some other kind of quotes leaked or anything like that. That would be the only way that I'd bring Jarrod Bowen in. But I think with him sustaining this injury and going off injured, I think for me personally, he is now in a void and a player that I would not be looking to bring in if I was going to replace Mohamed Salah or Son. Moving on to the guy on the right, we've got Dominic Solanke. Now, he didn't feature at all, and kind of Iriola's comment, I'm just going to flash it up on screen. He basically said, you know, it's a knock. Very simple. It's just a knock. So it's nothing, I don't think, too serious. Again, Bournemouth are playing like West Ham in the second game week. So with this just being a knock, I think Dominic Solanke has a strong probability of being back next game week. Well, for game week 21, to be honest. Like I said, because again, they are playing in that following weekend. It's not this weekend coming, so he's going to have further time off to potentially recover from this knock. And, you know, we might potentially again get some positive news from Iriola or any kind of other media assets, but we're not going to get a press conference very similar to David Moyes and Iriola. We're not going to get press conferences, so we are going to be going a little bit blind with these players. I think if you own them, keep them. I think unless we get like positive news that they are definitely out. But if I was potentially looking on bringing in Bowen this week, I think I would be avoiding, like I said, unless we get that like guaranteed golden nugget information that he's going to be available for game week 21. I think that does take him away from a player I potentially would be looking to buy for this game week. And the big discussion point for this weekend was whether or not Erling Haaland would play against Huddersfield. He didn't, wasn't even on the bench. And we also got the quote from Guardiola early in the week, potentially suggesting, you know, he's had a few sessions, but they've still got to, you know, take it light and he might miss the Newcastle game. I think that is looking a larger kind of stronger probability as well that he is going to miss game week 21. And like I said, with this deadline being pushed a little bit earlier, I don't think we're even going to get any leaks. If we do, it would be absolutely immense. But I think we are not going to get any potential leaks for this game week, which is a real shame. You know, it would have been massively helpful, to be honest, going into this game week to get that early team news on the Saturday morning. It would help them people decide what to do with Erling Haaland, whether or not to bring him in, kind of how to kind of handle and play the situation. But now we're left in a kind of like limbo. Well, I don't think we're going to get any news. We're going to obviously have another Guardiola press conference, but I imagine that is probably going to be a little bit reserved, probably very similar-ish comments. You know, he's recovering, he's doing this. But my only kind of positive outtake from all this is we have very good, reliable City team leaks. I'm thinking FPL Tony, I'm thinking FPL Main Road. Go and follow those guys on Twitter. Those are going to be the key kind of aspects and the players within these games that are going to allow us to kind of open up this kind of Pandora's box and find out whether or not Erling Haaland is potentially going to be playing this game week. So I think that is the caveat and the positive that we can take out of this situation. For me personally at the moment, I think Haaland is going to miss out. We are going to get a press conference. We are going to potentially get early team news. But I think for the moment, I wouldn't be looking to bring him in unless we get something real concrete before that Friday deadline, to be honest. Because Julian Alvarez, Manchester City still looked very good and very, you know, very consistent. Newcastle as well have the highest XG conceded in the league so far over the past 5 to 6 game weeks as well. So you would imagine with KDB as well coming back, we will talk on about him in a second, that you'd feel that Manchester City potentially could just breeze through this game against Newcastle United with their poor defensive record at the moment without using Erling Haaland. Maybe give him a few more games off as well, because like I said, then the next game week would be on the 27th or the 28th of January, which would be the FA Cup 4th round. So it gives him a prolonged period of time off to potentially recover and get himself fit for kind of the back end, the more kind of prestigious end towards the season where there's Champions League, you know, cup finals, and potentially lifting the Premier League as well. So I think for me, I think Pep will make him miss out on this game. Even if he's like, you know, 95% ready, I think, you know, he could potentially feature off the bench if they really needed him. But I think he's got a lot of trust in Julian Alvarez, and I think he'll still do the business. Like I said, unless we get any positive early team news, I think for me this week, Haaland is a very easy avoid. On the other hand, though, the man to the right of him, KDB obviously came off the bench, a return for him to English football as well. After quite a sustained kind of period of time off due to an injury, he was back. Of course, he picks up an assist on kind of his return from injury as well against Huddersfield in the FA Cup. I really like the look of him during the game as well. And obviously with Salah and Son, and potentially Haaland not even back for this game week, he could offer himself up as a fantastic replacement for one of those players if you wanted to go down that route. Obviously, he is a little bit pricey, you know, plus 10 million we're still talking, so he is going to be, you know, a big chump of change if you kind of need a little bit of money kicking about for Haaland. But I definitely think for maybe a kind of few game weeks punch, you're looking at the City fixtures. Newcastle away, it is a red fixture, I do get that, but like I said, they have been the highest team for XG conceded. Then it's Burnley at home, again, dreadful team. You could see Manchester City very comfortably winning that one. Brentford, who were one of the worst form teams for the festive period. Then Everton, again, very similar circumstances. So KDB could be an absolutely fantastic addition to have into your teams with Salah and Son both off. So we're going to have a little bit of money to play with. KDB could be a fantastic asset. Obviously back in the FA Cup, picking up that assist, I think he could be a brilliant option to potentially go for in game week 21. Finishing up today's video, I wanted to take a look at my two personal kind of favourites for, you know, Salah and Son replacements. Obviously, earlier in the week, we had like a plethora of players that potentially we could pick from. You're thinking the likes of Bowen, Jota, who's been benched. Obviously, that game's still happening, so very easily could come off the bench and score and make me look like a knob right now, but I don't think that's going to happen. But obviously, like I said, we had Jota, Bowen, Michael Elise as well. Obviously, him picking up a knock. So all these quality players, Richarlison as well. And obviously with them signing Timo Werner and his minutes potentially being a little bit kind of less secure as well. So we've had a kind of, you know, a real good talent pool to pick from. Very quickly diminished down to injuries, new signings, and just all sorts of kind of weird scenarios kicking about. But the two that have remained for me and very much on my radar are Phil Foden and Pascal Gross. Both had a fantastic weekend in the FA Cup. So I thought I'd do a side-by-side comparison to kind of compare which one could be the better option to go for. And to be honest, looking at the data sets, there isn't too much to split the two over the past 5 game weeks. Obviously, Phil Foden scored the goal, got himself a brace in the FA Cup as well today. But Pascal Gross is a fantastic player. Like I said, he's been very consistent this year. Arguably Brighton's best player this calendar year. Just very consistent, picking up solid attacking returns as well. And for a lot cheaper price as well at 6.4 million. The fixtures are definitely there for Brighton as well. Wolves, Luton, Crystal Palace, Tottenham, Sheffield United, Everton and Fulham. So a very, very long-term kind of easy hold for me in my personal opinion. Picking up good data as well. And does kind of dabble on free kicks and corners as well. But I do think Phil Foden is that little bit more of a spicier option. You know, if you're feeling a bit frisky, you know, a little bit naughty, you know, you want to fancy something up. We spoke about the City fixtures in the last section. I think they're absolutely brilliant. As you can see, the XG isn't quite there, but I think the 2 goals that he scored today definitely underline his kind of goal scoring ability. I think he's worked his way back into Pep's kind of top team for the Premier League and for the kind of big games this season. So I definitely think his minutes are quite secure. And if you see at the bottom as well, expected points, there's a huge difference between the two of them. 14.6 for Pascal Gross and 21.4. So these are the 2 players that I'm thinking about potentially bringing in to my team as the Salah and Son replacements. Both of them do have terrific fixtures, so there's nothing potentially we could pick there. I do think Phil Foden is kind of more probable to a potential benching or an early substitution over Pascal Gross. I think both are terrific options, and if you had to put a gun to my head right now, I think I would probably lean slightly more towards Pascal Gross. I just have a feeling KDB is going to pop. And I don't know why. I've just got a little bit of a feeling. And I think that potentially could influence Foden's position. Maybe putting him further out wide. Maybe on the left or on the right as well. Doku back as well.
So potentially could see limited minutes for Phil Foden. So I think Pascal Gross, just for that kind of more minutes, X minutes factor, I think would potentially get my vote. If I had to pick, there's a gun to my head, I've got to pick one of the two, I probably would be going Pascal Gross this week. But thank you very much for watching today's preview video. If you do enjoy the content that you see on the channel, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe and help me hit 3,000 subs. We're super close to doing that on the channel, and if we could do that by the end of the month, that would be massively impressive. But thank you very much for watching today, and good luck this game week.